All right, shalom everyone. This is like my fourth try recording this, and now I'm doing it on my phone, so hopefully we'll get it right. This is a response to the video that Big Judah put out earlier about a lot of stuff, and I'll link to the video so people can watch the original. But this just confirms a lot of what he said, and I literally found this book yesterday. I started reading it last night. I read a bunch of it this morning before I got up, and I was like, "Wow, this is pretty serious." Like, I don't understand exactly what I'm looking at. So once I heard Big Judah's video, it made a lot more sense. And so I wanted to bring this information to people so they could see, um, you know, it's the truth. Like, we don't have to get our information from them. The information is our information. We just have to know how to use it, how to access it, and how to make the most of it. So this is from a book that you can find on the internet. It's called Magi Astrology. And this particular organization is obviously an astrology organization, but this is a book that they put out, right? And they don't give you the whole book. It's like everything but the last chapter, something like that. So, but I just, like I said, I just read the first couple chapters. And so, this is the first page in the book. On my iPad, I was actually able to scroll through the book, but just for purposes of doing this on my phone so that might actually record, um, I'm just going to read you from here. So, the legend of Magi astrology began at dawn during the spring equinox in 1625. Okay, pause. If it's called Magi astrology, it literally did not begin in 1625. The Magi go back to ancient ancient times. So, the fact that maybe this organization did, but even saying that is not true. So, I would just like to point out this book literally starts with a lie. But, anywho, it was then that a small group of Shaolin monks gathered at a monastery fort on the top of a mountain. Pause. So, Big Judah just said today that our people built all of their stuff on mountaintops, either real mountains or fake mountains, but they were still on mountaintops. So this goes right along with that. It says near the southern coast of China. Okay, so that was our people. In 1625, it probably wasn't a lot of our people left, but that was still our people. And this is also probably why they don't want any of the Chinese to look at the real ancient Chinese history and the whole um, CCP or whatever, doesn't want them to look at this information. So anyway, I'll just keep going. The southern coast of China to form a secret society of astrologers, which has the Western name of the Magi Society. Since that time, most legendary astrologers from China have been Magi astrologers. They have been best known for their remarkable ability to predict matters related to marriage, birth of children, war, and peace. Through hundreds of years, Magi Society remained a secret society for the very few who are the most gifted astrologers in China. Membership of the society was very limited, and each member passed their secret on to new members. Psalm 83 being Psalm 83. So even though they got this information, and we'll go on to in a second, I mean, it might be the next page, but they literally got their information from us. And then they made it a point to not ever, ever, ever let us access this information after they got it from us. So I just want to point that out. This is their first paragraph of the chapter one, their first paragraph of the book. Okay, so then it has a lot of other stuff, but we're going to go into chapter three. I have a lot of stuff highlighted here. And again, you can find this book for free on the internet. So, at least now you can. If not, send me an email and I'll send it to you. So, the early Hebrews were great astrologers. About 4,000 years ago, Babylonian astrologers formulated the fundamentals of astrology from which modern traditional astrology is derived. Okay, so now on the first page, it says that they started their thing in 1625. Now it's saying, well, we might have started our secret thing, but they had another thing going on that's back to ancient times. So 4,000 years ago, not a couple hundred. All right, so the people we're referring to include the Hebrews from their very beginnings until about the birth of Christ. Babylonia as a land was really ancient Mesopotamia, or it could have been Mu, or it could have been Atlantis, which was literally the land between two rivers. Pause. Oh, well, actually, not pause yet. These two rivers were the Tigris and the Euphrates, and it was there in Babylonia that Abraham, the patriarch of the Hebrews, was born and raised. In Babylonia during Abraham's time, every single person learned astrology. In Babylonia during Abraham's time, every single person learned astrology. Okay, let me pause right there because in the Book of Immediate Magic, Part 2, where we discussed with Brother Abdullah last week, the um the river astrology and how it was Abraham's. This is why. This one line completely explains that whole thing. And it also explains why the author didn't talk about it because he does not go into like a lot of astrology. So he goes into some and he goes into it from a particular perspective, but not this perspective. So if he talked about this, he would have to talk about a whole lot more. He didn't want to get into that, being that I'm assuming he's of Ish background. So then he would have to explain how Abraham is either Israel, Hebrew Israelite or not a Hebrew Israelite. You just probably ain't want to go into that. So I would like to also say that this not only confirms what we read in the book, this explains it, and I had been on a sort of fact finding mission on that. So this ties that up with a nice bow. Except I don't think that the rivers that this is related to is those two rivers, but that's another research project for another day. So, and every single person learned astrology. That means that our ancient ancestors, every one of them knew, had in depth, um, tremendous knowledge of astrology. What does that really mean? What that really means is that people knew way back when the times their kids were born, the day, the sun they were born under. Actually, people, I'm assuming that some people actually went the extra step of planning out births so that they could be at certain times and all of that. Because if everybody knew it, then everybody knew how it worked, and it wasn't, guesswork. People just knew. So, um, there's a lot that one sentence has a lot to unpack, which we have not which has not been fully addressed yet. And if I have to, I'll go into it if somebody else doesn't. So anyway, the next thing is as a result, there are literally dozens of references to the Hebrews' use and respect for astrology in the Old Testament. For these reasons and many others, the Magi Society is convinced that all of the Hebrew prophets of the ancient era were astrologers. Pause. Not only were they ancient astrologers, they were ancient magicians. So the very thing that they have always said is bad for us is exactly what our ancestors did. So I would just like to point out that is not lost on me, and I'm sure it's not lost on you. So if you are skeptical about this, we suggest you study the Kabbalah, which is unequivocally Hebrew and highly astrological, with some numerology and mysticism thrown in. So when they say numerology and mysticism, that's the tarot. Because the Kabbalah doesn't make sense without the tarot. It doesn't make sense without the astrological part too, but it doesn't make sense without the tarot. And also, I've never seen anybody say it's unequivocally Hebrew. They don't really say that, especially when you're talking about Hebrews as the ancient people who were there before Babylon. So they're talking about, our people. So again, this is a great discovery for the nation to know that there are people who know the truth. And of course, it's Psalms 83 being Psalms 83. All right, next page. Okay, let me skip ahead. Okay. At first, they were mainly looking in. looking for ways to tell if a day was good for planting a crop or harvesting one. Along the way, for obvious reasons, the Babylonians quickly became just as interested in trying to predict matters of war and peace and also natural catastrophes. Was a day a good day for peace? Was there danger because a war could break out? Or would a day be one that might bring about a major tragedy, such as an earthquake, flood, or assassination? The Babylonians were also very interested in the destiny of all newborn babies and believed that astrology could foretell their future based on the day the infant was born. The Babylonians studied astrology because they wanted to be able to predict whether a baby would be a king, a great warrior, or maybe a talented musician, poet, or astrologer. So, this whole entire paragraph is a bunch of nonsense because if they're talking about the same ancient Hebrews, they already had the information of the planets. Why do I know that? There was a book that somebody had. It was, well, Raphael had it. It's called an ephemeris, Raphael's ephemeris. It is a literal book with all the literal placements of all the literal planets, all the way from the beginning of time, from the beginning of Genesis, which they mentioned. If he hasn't already mentioned, it's going to come up. So they already had all the information of the signs, so they didn't just, oh, all of a sudden find this and then they just started tracking it. No, they already had all the information. Because if you look at the ephemeris, if you try, so first of all, let me explain the ephemeris real quick. It is a book that literally has every single position of the planets, of every single planet forever. So you can get one that covers the whole 19th century, but you could get one that goes all the way back 5,000 years. You can get one that goes all the way forward 5,000 years. This is why. All right, so I'm sorry about that. Phone rang. So yes, it can go forward 5,000 years. It can go backward 5,000 years. Um, I have been the stars is the only thing that's perfect. Anything that can cover that amount of time perfectly is the only thing that we as humans on this earth have access to that is potentially perfect, and therefore it's not like we need to worship it. We only worship the Most High, but this is clearly His creation, and therefore it is one of the things, subdue the earth. That doesn't just mean the earth, the planet. That also means the stars in the skies and everything else. So there's a lot that goes into this. We have a lot of information to learn, and again, this another point in this particular chapter is that you need to know your personal birth chart. You can't just say, "Oh, I need to know general things, general information." No, you need to know the position of the planets when you were born. And if once you understand how that works, then the Kabbalah makes more sense. The tree of life makes more sense. A lot of stuff makes more sense. But without that information, you're really lacking the full understanding of these particular different aspects. So that is um that is another point that no I keep trying to make, but and you can't, the software that they have online is not accurate. Is anyway, it's a whole lot to it. It's just not completely accurate. So but anyway, I can go into that later a little bit more once I finish this. So all right, on to the next paragraph. It was true then when Genesis was written thousands of years ago, and as you will learn in this book, it is equally valid now, maybe even more so. And that's the part I was saying, that if they knew, if this information goes back to Genesis, then how could they form an organization in 1625 and say it was a new organization in 1625? That's actually not accurate, and that was the premise of their whole premise of this organization was is something that's literally not accurate. So sorry, I had to change locations because it was so loud. So all right, on to the next point. The next point being this next paragraph. So the Babylonians believe that mega events were also foretold by celestial signs in the sky. For this reason, the Babylonian astrologers fanatically studied the sky with the goal of being able to recognize such signs when they actually occurred and predict the precise meaning of the signs. That's not what that is, because I just said Raphael had an ephemeris, so they didn't have to try to predict the signs. They already had a book with the signs in it. And another thing is that um, they could know what the precise meaning of the signs were because of the magic they had access to. So this is kind of this is from the point of an astrologer and not from a point of the Hebrew. So all right, I'm just going to read this one line off this page. The Babylonian astrologers were the first to accomplish this. To do this, they invented the circle. Does that sound ridiculous or what? You mean to tell me? You mean to tell me, first of all, the Babylonians or the ancient Hebrews? Which one is it? Who invented the circle? I mean, if you read this whole page, they literally say it's the Babylonians. That doesn't make any sense, especially when they said the Babylonians were the ancient Hebrews. So the fact that they said they invented the circle, that's crazy. That's just crazy. Um, maybe they explained it first, but there's no way that they invented the circle. You mean to tell me this you mean to tell me that nobody before them had circles? You know how insane that sounds? I just want to point that out. Even though stuff was round, nobody invented the circle. And to say that the astrologers invented the circle, that's even crazier. So, but another thing that does is that takes the thunder from the Greeks or whoever, Pythagoras or whoever. I mean, I think they just they ascribe way too much to Babylonian and not to the proper location. So I just wanted to read that one line. All right, so next page. The Babylonian astrologers invented and used their circle with its 360 degrees to help them record and illustrate the positions of the sun, moon, and planets every single night for thousands of years as they looked for celestial signs in the sky of impending mega events for thousands of years. No, they did not. Raphael, the daggone archangel, has a book that was created at the time of creation that documented this information for thousands of years. They did not reinvent the wheel on this. This is so insane. Even to say this, that oh, they were the only ones that could do this. This is insane. This is insane. So I just wanted to say that. Next paragraph. The Babylonians divided the sky into constellations. This way, they had clear guideposts for the positions of the planets. So, without going into too much detail about what this means exactly, basically, actually, it's going to come up on the next page. So let me just keep going. It is most easily defined as the path of the sun across the sky measured against the stars that are fixed, which has uh, um, they're talking about the reference points that they made to be able to find the planets in the sky, right? So that's how they define a day. Um, okay, let me go on to the next page. So, the most important thing to bear in mind about the constellations is that they were initially devised by the Babylonians as guideposts to help them find the planets. Therefore, the Babylonians needed to include the zodiac constellations in their circular maps in the sky in order to facilitate the drawing of their circles as maps of the sky. The Babylonians assigned a unique symbol to represent each zodiac constellation. In this way, they could put the symbol of the zodiac sign on the circle rather than drawing the whole lot of stars. Many of you probably familiar with the symbols from the 12 zodiac constellations. So, the thing I wanted to point out in this paragraph is that I don't think a lot of people know this, but each zodiac sign actually has stars within it. The symbol is just like they say here, it symbolizes the constellation. But it's a literal constellation that is the actual zodiac sign. It's not just one star. So a lot of people when they look at their charts, they think, okay, I've got this zodiac chart, and this chart just has a bunch of symbols on it. That's not what that is. The symbols are like anybody who's ever read a map, like an old school map, you will have symbols on the map, and so the symbols are just guide points on the map. So that so that you can easily find like if you're trying to go to a gas station, let's say using like Apple Maps or Google Maps, you're trying to go to a gas station, they have a little picture of a gas can or whatever where the gas station is. That's what the symbols for the zodiac are. They're not like, and I haven't done the research on this yet, but I can almost guarantee that the symbols of the zodiac are actually representative of what the stars look like, the actual constellation of stars look like. There's another book that I have that goes into detail of how many stars each zodiac sign has and their positions and stuff like that. So I'm fairly certain that you can look and see in the sky where a particular constellation is based on the way that their little symbol is drawn, if you know the number of stars and whatnot. So, but keep in mind, this is a skill that our people had. This is what we did. Every hold on, I don't want to go back, but every one of our people learned astrology. So it's not like people didn't know. Everybody knew. Everybody knew. Everybody knew. This was something that, and from the first page, they say that it was passed down, with it was passed down from person to person. It wasn't written down in books. So this is something that everybody knew, and it was passed down from person to person and not written in books. So that is to say that there was, the oral tradition was very heavy in this. So I just want to point that out to people because that is one thing that keeps sort of coming back up, percolating through the system, is that a lot of this stuff wasn't written down. I think this also correlates with the information from the Druids because they didn't write stuff down. This stuff was not written down. Now, they did write stuff down. It's called the Ephemeris. That was just the book that kept track of all of these records. All right, so I'll keep going. They were interested in the moon and learned that the position of a full moon in the sky moved 30 degrees or 30 days of the sun's movement from one full moon to the next. So, by having 12 zodiac constellations, each of which was 30 degrees, when the last full moon occurred in the 15th degree of one zodiac constellation, then the next full moon will occur in the 15th degree of the next one, or at least very close to the 15th degree of the next zodiac constellation. So, that's kind of a complicated concept, but basically, each one of the houses in I don't want to go too much into the actual discussion of the zodiac chart, but for purposes of explaining this, each one of the houses is 30 degrees, which is 30 days. So if you look at a whole chart, it actually is a chart for um, if you go through the chart, it's a chart for a whole year. Of course, Brother Man has done a lot of videos talking about how we need to get off the zodiac wheel, and this is what that means because as you travel through the zodiac wheel of 30 degrees equaling 30 days, 12. That basically brings you into the next year. You're stuck on the wheel. So we do have to get past this, but only way to get past it is to really understand where your stars are, your actual literal stars are, and what your stars are, and what does that mean for you, and how you can use that. And if you don't have your accurate chart, you can forget it. I mean, of course, the angels can come down and give you the information, but you really got to do some help. You got to give them some help. When you can, to try because this stuff is complicated. So, but an astrologer told me one time, if you just obsess over your chart, you could just literally spend your whole life obsessing over your own personal chart. And that is not an underestimation. That is not an underestimation at all because charts are so complicated. Everything means something. So, on to the next paragraph. What this all meant was that each lunar cycle has 30 degrees. This discovery was one of the most important ones in all of astrology. This gave the Babylonians a reason to view the angle of 30 degrees and any multiple having some kind of mystical power. And the 30 degrees again is what is 30 degrees taps into 30 days, and it is the length of a particular house. So, okay. The number 12, which was the number of zodiac constellations, became a somewhat mystical number. It's also 10 step Michael. I just thought about that. That's what it was. Was somewhat a mystical number to the Babylonians. For example, Christ had 12 disciples. There were 12 tribes of Israel. A group of 12 of anything is described as a dozen. So this ties directly back into Brother Adir Bey's video about the hidden messages in the artwork, which tied back to Big Judah's other video about the his hidden messages in the artwork. So this stuff starts to all make sense when you link it to the zodiac. And of course, if you link it to the zodiac, then you have to link it to the Torah, because the tarot connection, direct use of the tarot in conjunction with the zodiac. And that being the tarot being the magic part, and the zodiac being the astrology part, the Urim and the Thummim. Okay. Next line. The Babylonians were also not the only astrologers of their time. Almost every ancient civilization had them. So again, they say the Babylonians, but they really mean the Hebrews. And what they're really saying is that our astrologers were the best astrologers. Oh, that's on the next page. Um, our astrologers were the best astrologers. Everybody had astrologers they were trying to figure out, but there was only one group that was really good at it. Again, this is like Big Judah said in a video earlier that all Israelites weren't priests, but only Israelites could be priests. This was the same thing. Except all Israelites were astrologers. All the Israelites were astrologers. This was common knowledge throughout the community. So unlike the priest comment, this is the total opposite for this comment. Okay, so next line. For example, it is now known that around the time of Jesus of Nazareth was born, there was a nova, but such celestial events were very rare and unusual. After the nova heralded the birth of Christ, there was not another nova for 1,000 years. And I think this is directly related to the rescuing of the souls from hell, but I haven't done enough research on this yet to correlate it. But of course, if anybody has any other linkages for that off the top of their head, why there wouldn't be another nova for 1,000 years, I'm sure there's some information out there about that. So the Babylonian astrologers were much better. Oh, pause, because now they have novas all the time. Everything's a nova. If you look at any of the space news, literally everything's a nova. So, the Babylonian astrologers were much better at research than their counterparts in other cultures. During the time that the Babylonians already drawing and storing these daily maps. And they weren't already drawing and storing these daily maps, they already had the maps. In addition, they were recording the important events that occurred during each day. So they were really taking the news from each day like we do when we do the prayer. Taking the news of the day and then breaking that down and then keeping it as a record, as a internet record, for lack of a better terms. That's also kind of like the tarot readings that I do. Is like an internet record of what has occurred for the day. So the Babylonians did this for centuries and centuries and millennia. No, they didn't. Raphael had a book. I mean, okay, I'm not going to say that again. He had a book. Okay, their first such discovery was a conjunction of two planets. Okay, so this is getting into the actual things that they discovered. The conjunction of two planets was a celestial sign. And so this is why you need to know your chart, because if there's a bunch of different conjunctions, I don't think I'm going to get into the details of what all of that means because it's a little bit complicated. But if you have conjunctions in your own personal chart, that means something. That's not a nothing. And most people do have conjunctions. They have trines, they have sextiles, they have squares, they have all kinds of stuff. And each one of those things means something. And it means something for you personally in your life. So this is why knowing your own chart um, is extremely important. And I will keep saying that until people understand you need your own chart. A solar eclipse was really a conjunction of the sun and the moon. So how we always say that, um, let's see, if you are Kokavite and in the hour of Kokav and maybe in the sign of let's see, Mercury. I can't remember the sign of Mercury, but if you have all those things lined up, then you can accomplish a lot of things. That's called a conjunction. I mean, we could call this by the proper term. That's a conjunction event. We can take advantage of conjunctions because they are historically forever, all time, like they just said on the last page for centuries and millennia, they have known that these conjunctions mean something. So we just don't understand. I mean, we understand the concept, but we're not using the terminology, and we're really not using the conjunctions properly because we're using the general conjunctions. You can use the conjunctions personally with you too, because remember, everybody in Abraham's time knew this. Everybody was astrologer, down to the littlest kid down to the biggest adult, everybody was an astrologer. Everybody. That means that includes wandering in the desert for 40 years. They couldn't have been wandering. That's not what happened. I mean, that's literally, that cannot possibly be what happened because if all of those people were astrologers, there's no way they would have been wandering in the desert. So they were probably wandering, but I don't know if it was this in this realm. I'm starting to believe that it wasn't because if you're an astrologer, you can track where you're going by the sun and the position of the stars. So why is it that you would be lost, especially in the story they put in the Bible? It says they were traveling by night, you know? So like, does that even make any sense? But anyway, I won't even go there right now. So this last paragraph, they learned that as the planets move around and around in the Earth's sky, an important heavenly sign can come in the shape of the figure that was created by connecting lines between the positions of some of the planets. So, if you look at a chart, you can see that they draw in the lines, but they draw in too many lines. They make it complicated. You can't understand it, and you miss the total point of the chart because they make everything a triangle. They make everything a some sort of conjunction, and then you can't figure out what the real meaningful conjunctions are. So that's a huge problem right now. So if you take a look at these shapes, at least one of them, two of them should be particularly familiar. If you draw any sigils at all, then you will recognize that the shield of David is the last one that they talk about. That is a huge, huge, huge astrological sign that we had no idea existed. I had no idea existed till I read this page on the book, and I was shocked. I was totally shocked because that makes the sigils make more sense, which makes the celestial writings make more sense, which makes everything make more sense because the sigils, the reason why you have to put a circle is because it represents a celestial sign. It's literally you're creating a microcosm of a celestial sign. You're picking up on the ley line of a celestial sign when you make your sigils. That's the reason why they're so powerful. That's why they work because it's the literal sign in the sky that makes this happen. So like I have a bunch of Yohat Kalak sigils. This is why they work because it's the literal celestial sign of Yohat Kalak. And I'm sure there's more to that. I haven't done the actual physical drawings yet, and once I do over with the frame of mind of the zodiac, then I will add some further insights to that. So all right. When the planetary geometry of a day included symmetrical patterns like the ones on this current page, then an extraordinary event was almost sure to happen. And I would like to point out that again, why I keep going back to this, the Urim and the Thummim, because the um the Urim and Thummim is the it's on the seal of Yale University. So literally they've been using this information. It's not like a suggestion or an idea or a thought. They have actually been using this information. So I'll go to the next paragraph, the last sentence here. The first one is called a grand trine. The second one is called a T square. The third one is called a grand cross. The fourth one is called a golden rectangle. The fifth is called yod. Let's look at the fifth one. One, two, three, four, five. That's the one with the small triangle at the top, and it's kind of like long on the side, which is shocking. Yod, we know what yod is, and yod he vade he. And the sixth is the sextile. The seventh is a kite, and we know what a kite is. And the last is a very famous pattern known as the Star of David, Shield of David. Um, but what most of us do not know is that Hebrew symbol commonly known as the Shield of David was actually astrologically derived. Okay, so let me just pause right there for a second. If it was astrologically devised, then how could it be devised from a group of people who only got this information 4,000 years ago? That doesn't make any sense. So I just wanted to point that out. At the time of David was way before the 4,000 years that they say, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know how old this planet really is. So um, um, the Star of David is really an astrological pattern. It is two perfectly symmetrical triangles, meaning two grand trines. However, one of the grand trines is turned 60 degrees from the other. The entire pattern can be formed when any six planets are aligned in the sky, such that each planet is spaced 60 degrees from the next planet. According to the ancient Babylons, which are the Hebrews, the Star of David was the most powerful symmetrical pattern of the planets. So that's the reason why the sigils work. The Magi Society believes that Samuel, Hebrew prophet, chose the anointed David as king of Israel, was an astrologer, probably the best one of his time. David was born on a day when six planets formed a pattern that is now known as the Star of David. Samuel knew that anyone born on such a day had a great chance of becoming the most powerful person alive and the most fortunate. The Hebrew prophets were the best astrologers of their time. That's hands down. So, um, that is to say, that's our people. Like, that's what we did. So, this is just another confirmation that the information coming out is true, is accurate, and is being backed up from multiple sources, multiple unrelated sources. Like I said, I found this on an astrology website. I was trying to actually answer a particular question about something um something that was said, and I was looking for some specific information, and I just happened to stumble across this, and it just literally lined up perfectly with everything else that's going on, as far as our research, our collective research is. So that's all I have for this right here. I will go into some further details once I get some clarifications, especially about the some of the other like sign things and what they meant and stuff like that. So once I get some more clarification, I'll bring out another video. Thanks for listening. Please share this video, through your networks, especially people who are interested in this type of thing. And we'll see you in the next video. Oh, the spirits who are here with us, you're invited to go in peace. Beloved listeners, you're invited to be at peace, and always remember the Most High is your peace.